Are you a new player to MMOs? Have you logged into a new game only to hear a bunch of jargon and acronyms and all this shit that just leaves you kind of cross-eyed? Are you looking to start playing a new game or like raiding in World of Warcraft and you go to look up those YouTube tutorials and they're talking in a whole nother language? Do you need an MMO translator? Well then this is the video for you. Alright guys, we're gonna stack on the boss, range, DPS, you AoE those adds and heals, focus on the main tank while he aggroes and kites the boss, don't forget to CC the mobs, then we're gonna Zerg strat this big guy so we don't have to pug it later. Remember, more dots, remember your buffs, good luck on your Biscuit and BOAs, and may RNGs be with you. Hey y'all, I'm Alohomora with Nerdcore Performance, where we empower active geeks, gamers, and cosplayers to be geeking strong. In this week's video, I am going to run super fast through 25 or so different words and phrases and acronyms that are commonly associated with MMORPGs, or massively multiplayer online role-playing games. Specifically, these apply to World of Warcraft, but I'm sure they can go all across the board with a lot of different things. Anyway, with Shadowlands coming out soon, this is a great opportunity for new players to come join the game, especially because it'll be a lot easier for new players to level up in Shadowlands. So come join us, one of us. So now, in no particular order, because I really don't feel like trying to put any of the sense into any of this, here is your MMO vocab lesson. Alright, first up we have your DPS or your HPS. This stands for damage per second and heals per second. God, I'm already can't talk. Expressed as a number. Many classes and characters you play do damage or heals, or tank, but more on that later. And your DPS HPS is a number that allows you to flex that credibility. And next you have the tank, the dude or dudette in a raid who gets whacked the hardest by the boss. The tank keeps the boss attacking him or her instead of swiping at the whole raid, which helps healers focus most of their energy on one target instead of many, and allows the DPS classes to burn the boss. The tank does this through aggro. So aggro is the ability to keep the attention of an NPC or boss in game. A tank has aggro, your pet should not. Sometimes confused with spouse aggro, when your significant other demands your attention when they get home from work, distracting you from your mission at hand and making all your friends mad at you. Which brings us to NPCs, or non-player character. They are made by game developers for the development of the game. Yeah, duh. Or they are someone for you to throw snowballs at when you don't get the loot you want repeatedly. You won't piss off an IRL person fucking around with an NPC unless they have an unhealthy attachment to that character. Raid. A raid is an instanced zone, that's a hard word to say, that generally requires a large group of players working in coordination to defeat bosses, mobs, and reach a common objective. It usually requires about 10 to 40 people to do, and in World of Warcraft it has 4 levels of difficulty. These are LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic that get progressively harder and have harder objectives, and these raids can be completed in-game once per week for loot. A dungeon is a smaller instanced zone that generally requires about 5 players to complete an objective. Specifically in World of Warcraft, it is a tank, a healer, 3 DPS class, and has 3 levels of difficulty with some exceptions. These are normal, heroic, and mythic, but mythic can also get harder with things called keys, but boy oh boy, we're not getting into that can of worms right now. So, instance, I have said instance a few times, right? I have? Anyway, and specifically, this is a term used to describe an area of the game that is no longer open to all the people of the realm and server, but it becomes an instanced version of that area so that only you or the people in your group have specific access to what's going on in it at that moment. Dungeons and raids are instanced, most outdoor areas are not, but some dungeons and raids have outdoor components that you can go into, not instanced versions of them. It's kind of confusing. Back to LFR. LFR, what the hell kind of difficulty is that? And LFR is looking for, LF is looking for, LFR specifically is looking for raid, and it is an action used in World of Warcraft to group for raids with random people so you can get your gear and objectives without having to rely on a guild or people you know or having any friends whatsoever. It is also the lowest difficulty raid tier and often the most frustrating. These players are found automatically through in-game service called Group Finder. Raids generally require some level of coordination, and LFR definitely lacks that, so good luck. LFG is looking for group, and you'll often see this in public chat channels or discords, and LFM is looking for more, not looking for males, come on man, but maybe to hunt mobs or a boss. You won't really see LFM so much, mostly you'll see LFG. LFR groups brings us to Pugs. This is what is a Pug group. An LFR group is a Pug group. Pug means pick up group, which is a group of random players chosen by the WoW matchmaking system. Sometimes, for example, you might have 3 of your friends who want to do a dungeon, but you need 2 more. These 2 more people would be Pugs. And it's generally not the most ideal situations, but be nice to your players, folks. There's enough negativity without you screaming at the likely 12-year-old Pug on the other side of the computer. Alright, so what is a server or a realm? Since there are a bajillion people who play World of Warcraft, it has multiple different servers or realms on which you can play on, which limits the number of players actually playing at one time in one area so to not overload the system. You and your best friend could both be at the same place at the same time, but if you're on different servers, you won't see them unless you get invited to the same group. A term thrown around in WoW speak a lot is shard, which I admit for the longest time I actually thought people were saying shart. But anyway. Sometimes in servers, overcrowding still does happen, in which case Blizzard has what's called shards, which may put you in a different version of the same server. I honestly still don't really understand how they figure that out. So Blizzard's exact definition is, sharding is a game design tool created to prevent player overcrowding in outdoor areas of World of Warcraft and to improve server performance. Sometimes you might see yourself running along next to your buddy, but all of a sudden they just disappear like a ghost. It's because you sharded, not sharted, sharded. Alright, now to gameplay, we have HOTS and DOTS. HOTS is a numerical representation of heals over time, and DOTS is the same of damage over time. Sometimes these are caused on yourself by a by a buff or a debuff. HOTS are good, they heal you over time. DOTS are bad, they damage you over time. Yeah, if they're on you anyway. Along the same lines of thinking, we have buffs and debuffs. A buff is something that improves your performance somehow. Maybe it'll heal you over time, or it'll cause a rise in an attribute like haste or agility for an amount of time, which makes you perform better. A debuff is something that negatively affects you for the same amount of time, like something that does ticking damage. Bonus! Ticking damage or a ticking debuff just means that it affects you over a period of time, like you will lose 100 hit points per second for 10 seconds. That is a debuff. Food in World of Warcraft generally gives you a buff, like an increase of some stat, and you don't want debuffs. Alright, in terms of gear, you have BOP, BOE, and BOA. These are bind on, which generally refers to gear and how you or someone else can wear it or equip it. If it's BOP, it's bind on pickup, and that gear is now yours. You cannot trade it or sell it to another player. It becomes soulbound. So even if you didn't want that item, shit out of luck, dude, it's yours. You can, however, sell it to NPC vendors, however. BOE is bind on equip, meaning you can still trade it or sell it to another player until you equip it. So don't make the mistake that I have many times and loot a valuable BOE, but want to see how pretty it looks on your character and then put it on, just to realize it's now soulbound. The great thing about World of Warcraft is they have something called Transmog, and they have a tool in-game that allows you to see how loot looks on you before you actually equip it. So yeah, use that tool, look how pretty it is on you. If you want it, equip it, you can't sell it, but if you want the gold, make sure you don't equip it. Now you have BOA, which is bind on your account. This is specifically tied to your BlizzCon account, meaning you can't, I said BlizzCon? Oh my god, I miss conventions. Gosh. To your Battle.net account, meaning you can't trade it or sell it to other players, but you can send it to any tunes that you have on your account. So if you loot an item that your hunter can't use, but your warlock can, you can just send it over via in-game mail. Oh, one more with gear is BIS or BIS. Speaking of gear, BIS is best in slot, or a piece of gear that is ideal for your specific character. Maybe a helmet drops from the 3rd boss in a raid and you're really trying to get it. It's a chance to drop. You might not get it, but you really want it because it's your BIS. There are plenty of websites that you can refer to know what your BIS gear is and how to get it, and I will link some of these down in the description. So I learned something new with this one, but mob. Mob is actually stands for monster or beast. I just thought it was like a crowd, a mob, like a mob in a crowd, mosh pit, mob, whatever. But anyway, it's a monster or beast that can be killed for experience, loot, or a quest. So, yay, learned something new this time. Next we have pat. Pat is another word for patrolling mobs. It generally means that if you shoot one of them, that whole group is going to come after you and maybe make your friends mad at you. I have misheard pat for years, and I thought my raid leaders were saying pack, like don't pull the pack, not don't pull the pat. So when I realized they were saying pat, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But then I didn't know what pat was, because I'm like, what the fuck is a pat? So I actually had to look that one up myself. Next, we have AoE, or Area of Effect. That is another term for a DPS or healing spell that hits a large area. In a raid example, there are a lot of small adds around a boss. Sometimes you want to hit those fuckers with an AoE spell to nuke them all down at once, rather than with a single target attack, which only attacks one target, generally for much higher damage. AoE attacks a bunch of targets for a lot less damage, but there are times when you're definitely going to want to know what your AoE spells are. So that brings us to add. Adds are little dudes that are added onto a big boss fight. They are additional, hey, see, add, mobs that spawn in the area around a boss. These can sometimes add some fun challenges to a lot of fight. I just learned right now that from the WoW wiki that when adds spawn, it's also called they pop, which actually now that I think about it, I've been saying adds pop for years, so I guess I've been saying that right for a while. Another thing you'll want to know is your CC, or crowd control. Crowd control spells are any spells that, well, control a crowd. For example, some classes can root mobs in place, others can stun, some can slow or fear them to run away. So there are a lot of different ways to control these adds or mobs to make the main objective of the fight easier. And the helpful hint to know is what your class CC is, because most classes will have some sort of crowd control. It can really make difficult fights a lot more manageable. I've played a hunter for a bajillion years, and I, for the longest time, did not think those really had any use, and oh yeah, I was wrong. Another term that you might hear thrown around is kite. Kiting is not like flying a kite, like in the air. It is basically where you run around and have mobs or the boss follow you without actually scoring any major hits on you. It's kind of like you're running away and they're following you and you're like, ah, run away. And they're like, oh, I'm gonna get you, while they lumber after you anyway. Sometimes you'll kite adds or mobs to gather them more effectively so that you can AoE them down better, or you'll kite the boss to move him to a better position or around certain obstacles, or allow your raid to fight them better. Oh my god, we're almost done. 3 more left. RNG. RNG is the bane of so many players' existence. It is a very generic term that means chance or luck. RNG specifically is an acronym for random number generator and kind of equates to the roll of a dice. Straight from the wiki, it states that they are algorithms used in computing when an outcome needs to be as random as possible, since computers cannot actually generate random numbers. RNG is used for crit chances, loot drops, mount drops, etc. You'll often hear about players praying to RNGs this, and if you're playing WoW a lot, you will be too. Oh my god, we're almost done. Proc is another term that you'll use kind of with luck, but it's actually guaranteed to happen. It is short for procedure and usually involves some type of planned event or something in game. For example, if you have a weapon that has a 20% chance to add, 5,000 points of shadow damage, that weapon has a 20% proc chance. Some classes have special abilities or movement things that could happen after you score a crit or a good hit, and that would be your proc. Two more. Okay, next up we have Zerg. Zerg is something I just started hearing in the last, really year or two, and it generally involves a strategy in defeating a boss. I guess it technically means a large group of unskilled players that start just whacking the boss down with no real strategy in hopes that their numbers will do the trick. I guess it was originally coined from a race in StarCraft that kind of do that. The way I have seen it more used since, however, is with actually skilled raiders who still want to ignore the mechanics of a fight just to beat the boss down as quickly as possible, usually because the mechanics of that fight are awful and stupid and make you want to hit your head against the wall repeatedly. So they'll just Zerg the fight. Are we doing the Zerg strat on this fight? That basically just means fucking pound it, not in a gross way, because ew, and kill the boss. All right, finally we have AOTC and CE. These two terms together you'll often see as bragging rights, or as requirements for people and guilds looking for players. AOTC is the World of Warcraft specific achievement ahead of the curve, which you get when you kill the heroic version of the current raid boss. Sometimes this even drops a mount, where everyone in the raid gets a guaranteed mount. You can only achieve AOTC when that raid is the main one active. It goes away as soon as the next raid launches. CE is called the achievement Cutting Edge, and it's a much more rare achievement that most WoW players will never actually get. It is killing the mythic version of the raid boss while the raid is active. Usually in this case there is an end boss or an end boss mount drop that guaranteed 1 to 2 people in the raid will get that mount. It's a big deal because once that raid boss once that tier ends, you can no longer get CE, and that mount chance now goes down to 1% or less. All of us mount hunters out there know this very, very well. It is a big deal to have achieved CE while raiding, but please don't be a braggy asshole about it and start adding all those acronyms to the, hey, I'm a Lohamora, AOTC, CE, like a doctor, because that's toolish and no one likes that. But in all seriousness, be really, really proud of your CE, because that is a huge, huge accomplishment. So congratulations for all you CE raiders out there. And that's pretty much it. That's actually not it. There's a ton more. But that hopefully will get you guys started and the ball rolling and, ease your foot into it. If there's anything that I did not mention that you're still curious about, please leave it in the comments below. Or if there's something you do know now that you didn't know then and you think other people should know, also leave that in the comments below. Or leave lots of stuff and I can make a new video about the next one, because making videos are fun and I'm learning a whole lot. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe. Coming soon, I will have more fitness videos too, and hopefully more related to gamer fitness, because that's what we're really into. Anyway, thank you guys for watching and have a good one.